Yes. So, two very interesting presentations. Wonderful to have two economists talking in a rather non-economic way. Why not? So, Christian, you say that it's our basis, our culture is much too economic. But, I mean, you know that unemployment is an enormous challenge, maybe not in the rest of the world, but especially in Europe. And that brings me to Ladislau. I think concentration of knowledge in Europe is enormous, and still we are unemployed. I was in the class of Gary Becker nearly 50 years ago, 1964, when he brought out his book on investment in human capital, which is a rather important book. And he made the point that, you know, human capital, therefore knowledge, education, has a cost. And I agree with Ladislau. This is internet and all this is a basic revolution. And still, if you go to American students, the problems of paying their education is just incredible. And we here might have the feeling that we're here for free. Somebody pays for us. So education has a cost. You put up, Ladislau, this smartphone, and you said 95% is knowledge, immaterial knowledge. Sorry, but there are patents behind that. Patents, it's a question of private property that must be protected, even in China. So, you know, I brought up a couple of things, but I just wanted to... You want
to answer? Because it was not really a question, but you want to answer?
No, sure. The basic issue is that the way all we do has costs and products. The question is, you displace the place where you get paid for what you're doing. The same way, when I sell a book, when there was no internet, the basis was the cost of the paper and the printing and the work and so forth. I was not paying for the value of content. I was paying for the value of the material support for the content. So this simplified things. I was selling a product like I was selling a Barbie doll, no problem. Now, since the cost of access is practically nil, how do we get paid for this? These are new rules. And basically, we displace the moment you get paid for it. For example, in free music, people are getting paid for concerts. I came out of an internet management meeting of the association. They told me, but what you're doing, putting your books for free and articles, I mean, how do you make money? I say, well, you're not informed. Scientists don't get money from books or from publications. Yes? On the other hand, I have my website, dobor.org. Lots of people throughout the world are getting my papers, so I get invitations. I go to congresses. I am well paid for this. In others, we don't get paid. But we make a balance. But this is important. The idea that in the knowledge economy, the logic of payment is not the same as a watch. You get the watch, so much money, which will pay for more watches to be produced and so forth. But the payment does get there. And basically, as the productivity is going up with this new knowledge, in fact, we get cheaper access to more goods. Now, the key issue is employment. This is the key issue. Why are people wanting more growth and more product? Because what wakes you up at midnight with a cold feeling here is that you may not have the resources to support your family, thing of the kind. Now, this is another shift. I would like to recommend to you, we wrote a paper, Carlos Lopez, Ignacio Sachs, and myself. It's called Crisis and Opportunities. It's on my website. free of charge. We make 13 proposals on a strategy for balancing this issue. I won't go into that because it's a long story, but you can have surely the jobs, and on the long term, you will reduce the working hours, the present working hours, which will open up for much more time for cultural-based activities, which are also remunerated and so forth. It's a shift. Let me just suggest, my website, you put Ladislav Dober, you're there, or dober.org or whatever. Nobody gets lost. I mean, you can call your kid in if you have a difficulty. And basically, there is this paper, Crisis and Opportunities. I would recommend you. If you want to see how we're dealing with the challenges in Brazil, it is a paper called Brazil, an Agenda for the Decade. It was asked to me to make a resume of this for the presidency. And I have an essay which is called Economic Democracy. It is exactly on our discussion. It is based on this issue that political democracy, I mean, voting for politicians and limiting our participation to this is just not viable. This complex society needs much more complex participatory systems. So the democracy, the economics itself has to be democratized. It's called economic democracy. It won't kill you. It's roughly a little more than 100 pages. It's in English, French, Portuguese, and whatever. I mean, I'm trying to make the communication part of the...
Just one word. I just want to add one word of clarification about what I've said about the excessive importance of economics. I've been very simplistic in saying that. Of course, I accept that totally. I still believe that we have to analyze that and to make more difference between the value judgment and the political choices about objectives. And then, of course, we need economics and I have never said that economics was useless, of course. But I believe that, otherwise, yes, I will make a little bit. But I believe that we have to explore more the practical consequences of this surestimation of the economic preoccupation. That's all. Okay.
Yes. A very short question, so François, I think, Germaine.
Yes, hello. Thanks a lot for both presentations, very enlightening. My question is not really a question, but rather a comment to Professor Comelio. First of all, I would like to thank you and to commend you for reminding us that we were not living in some kind of UN wonder world, and that indeed many of the problems and the roots of the crisis that we are facing at the moment lie in unequal distribution of power, unequal distribution of wealth, of resources, and so on and so forth, and for warning us against the risks of consensus and of unanimity. And I feel that very often we see consensus in a very positive light. And I think that we should beware, indeed, as you said, of the consensus, if we are to take into account that many of the roots of the current ecological crisis lie in distributional issues, in an unequal distribution of wealth, of resources, and of power, and that therefore any solution to the crisis, any transition to genuine sustainability is not likely to be harmonious, is likely to be conflictual. And I think that very often we are afraid of facing conflict and we tend to pursue consensus. And I feel that consensus is extremely dangerous and runs the risk of not achieving anything.
Again, just in a few words, I agree with what you said, of course. I believe that's the reason why we have a very difficult problem in defining what the general interest is. It's not an addition of particular interest. It's a common view which has to be built. And we are not very strong in doing that. Yeah. Exactly.
Let me just add a thing to the first question. I forgot the paper. I sent the paper for this presentation. It is from intellectual property to knowledge economy. It is based on all the issues that you were raising and how the payment and deployment changes are being adapted, let's say, to this, to the thing. You're putting all the papers and contributions on the website on the
Yes,
Rencontres Internationales?
yes, I repeat.
Hey?